I didn't tell my brother's girlfriend what I actually do for a living. Not the whole truth, anyway. When she asked at the one work event we happened to cross paths at some downtown Calgary charity gala my company had sponsored, I just smiled and said, "Construction." She nodded the way people do when they've already stopped listening and moved on to someone else. I let her. I've been in the trades since I was 22. Started as a helper on a residential framing crew in Airdrie, hauling lumber and fetching coffee, and getting yelled at by a foreman named Terry who had zero patience, and honestly taught me more in 8 months than 4 years of anything else could have. I loved it immediately. Not the yelling, the work, the way a house goes up from nothing, the way you drive past something years later and think, I built that, my hands did that, that wall is holding up that roof right now, because I measured it right. My family did not share this enthusiasm. My mum was polite about it at first. As long as you're happy, she said, which is what Canadian mothers say when they mean the opposite. My dad was quieter. He'd built a career in financial planning. My brother was finishing his MBA at the Haskayne School of Business, and I was the daughter who came home with sawdust in her hair and calluses that made handshakes awkward at Christmas dinner. They never said it directly. That's the thing about this kind of disapproval. It lives in the pauses, in the way the conversation moves past me when relatives asked about careers, in the way my mum would redirect. And Mitchell is up for a promotion at the firm, did we tell you? And everyone would turn toward Mitchell like a plant towards sunlight, and I'd refill my wine and find something to do in the kitchen. I didn't have a company yet back then. I was just a journeyman carpenter with a good reputation and a beat-up Ford F-150 I was deeply attached to. That was fine. I was 24, 25, 26. I wasn't supposed to have a company yet. By 28, I had a small crew. By 30, I had a registered business, a project manager I trusted completely, and more work than I could take on. We focused on high-end residential renovations and custom builds in Calgary's inner city, Inglewood, Ramsay, Bridgeland, the kind of projects where clients have opinions about the direction of the wood grain in their kitchen island, and want weekly site meetings and pay on time because they can afford to. Good clients, steady work. I named the company after the street I grew up on. Not because it was sentimental, because I wanted something that sounded local and grounded and mine. I didn't tell my family how well it was going, not because I was hiding it exactly, more because every time I started to explain it, their eyes glazed over at a specific point. The point where I said the word crew or site or subcontractor. They weren't being cruel, they just genuinely couldn't picture it as something serious. In their minds, I had a job. Mitchell had a career. The difference, apparently, was whether you wore a hard hat to work. The Christmas before everything happened, my mum pulled me aside in the kitchen while the turkey rested. She was whispering, which she does when she's about to say something she knows won't land well. Mitchell is bringing someone to the New Year's party, she said. Her name is Paige. She's lovely. Her family's from Vancouver. Her father's in commercial real estate. She paused. I just want everything to be, smooth. I looked at her. Smooth. You know how first impressions work, sweetheart. I do, actually. I just mean, maybe don't talk too much about work. Mitchell he hasn't told her a lot about your situation. I don't want it to be a whole thing. I stood very still for a moment. My situation, she touched my arm. You know what I mean. I did know. That was the part that settled into my chest like something heavy and cold. I knew exactly what she meant, and she knew I knew, and we both pretended the conversation hadn't happened and went back out to the dining room and talked about Mitchell's upcoming trip to Toronto for a conference. I spent New Year's with friends. I told my mum I had a prior commitment, which was technically true. I'd made plans to be anywhere else the moment I left her kitchen. She texted me a photo of the party. Mitchell and Paige were in the foreground, laughing at something, champagne glasses raised. They looked good together. She was tall and polished. Dark hair. The kind of woman who looks effortlessly put together in a way I've never been able to manage and have mostly stopped trying. I looked at the photo for a moment, then put my phone away and went back to my friends. Spring came. Mitchell and Paige were apparently serious. I heard about her in increments. through my mum's updates, through things my dad mentioned in passing. She worked in marketing for a development company. She and Mitchell had taken a trip to Portugal. They were looking at condos together. My mum was, as she put it, cautiously optimistic. I met Paige twice before the summer. Both times briefly, both times at family things where the focus was elsewhere. She was pleasant enough. A little guarded, maybe. She asked me what I did and I said construction. And she said, "Oh, interesting," in the same tone of voice the charity gala woman had used, and we moved on. She didn't connect the dots. I understood why my company name wasn't my name. There was no reason she would have. In June, my project manager Kieran knocked on the door of my site office, which at the time was a converted trailer on a build in Mount Pleasant. "We got a call from Halcyon Properties," he said. "High-end residential developer, fairly new but well capitalized. They want to talk about a partnership on a 12-unit infill project in Kensington. Want me to schedule a call?" "Schedule a meeting," I said. "In person?" "Their office." The meeting was at a glass building downtown. I wore the jacket I keep in my truck for exactly these occasions. The project lead from Halcyon was a woman named Dorothea, sharp and efficient, who had clearly done her research on my company before I walked in. We talked for an hour and a half. The project was good. The numbers were right. I said I'd have my lawyer look at the partnership terms and get back to her within the week. On the way out, I ran into Paige. She was coming out of an office down the hall, laptop bag over her shoulder, and she stopped when she saw me. I stopped too. "Hey," she said. "What are you doing here?" "Meeting," I said. "With who?" "Halcyon. I'm looking at a partnership on a build they're running." I tilted my head slightly. "You work here?" Her expression shifted in a way I found interesting. "I head up marketing for Halcyon," she said slowly. "I've been with them since the beginning." We stood there for a moment. "So you're—" She started. "The contractor they just met with," I said. "Yes." I watched her reassemble something in her mind. I could see it happening. "You own the company," she said. It wasn't quite a question. "I do." She was quiet for a second. "Mitchell never mentioned—" "No," I said. "He probably didn't know how to explain it." I smiled, genuinely, because I wasn't angry at Paige. Paige hadn't done anything to me. "I'll have my lawyer send over the initial response to the partnership terms by Thursday. It was good to properly meet you." I walked to the elevator. She didn't follow. The partnership went through. It was a good project. 12 units in Kensington, high-spec finishes, the kind of work my crew does well. Dorothy and I developed a solid working relationship. Paige and I were professionally cordial in every email chain and site meeting we were part of, which wasn't many, but enough. I didn't call Mitchell. I didn't call my mom. I just did the work. I found out later, much later, how it came apart. Paige had come home one evening and said to Mitchell casually that she'd learned something interesting. His sister's company was the general contractor on Halcyon's biggest project of the year. That she'd apparently been running a successful renovation and custom build operation for several years. That she had a crew and a project manager and had just signed a partnership that put her in the room with the same developers Mitchell was trying to get investment meetings with through his firm. Mitchell apparently went very quiet. He called my mom. She called my dad. There were, from what I understand, several conversations that I was not part of, all circling around the same central question. How had they not known? The answer was simple. I'd told them. I tried to tell them, in pieces, over years, and they had never fully listened because they had already decided what I did and what it meant. They heard construction, and filed it somewhere small, and never looked again. My mom called me on a Tuesday evening in late August. I was in my truck outside a supply yard in Foothills, reviewing an invoice on my phone, and I almost didn't answer because I thought it was going to be something easy. Birthday plans, maybe. Some family logistics. "Why didn't you tell us?" she said when I picked up. I leaned back in the seat. "Tell you what? About the company. About all of it." "Mom, I've been telling you for 4 years." She was quiet. I waited. "I didn't understand," she said finally. "I didn't understand what it meant." "I know," I said. And I did know. That was the thing. I'd never been angry at her for being wrong, only for not being curious enough to find out she was. Paige said she started and then stopped. Mitchell feels terrible. I know he does. Can we? Your dad and I would like to have dinner. The 5 of us, if you're open to it. I looked out the windshield at the sky, which was doing that particular Alberta thing in August where it goes gold and enormous right before dark. I'll think about it, I said. She took a breath. I know that's fair. We stayed on the phone for another few minutes. She asked about the Kensington project. Actually asked what phase we were in, how many units, when we expected to be done. I answered her honestly. She listened in a way she hadn't before. When we hung up, I sat in the truck for a while. I did have dinner with them eventually, not right away. I took a few weeks, not out of spite, but because I genuinely needed to think about what I wanted from it. I'm not someone who cuts people off easily, especially family. But I'd also spent too many years shrinking in dining rooms, while my brother expanded into all the available space, and I wasn't willing to go back to that. If we were going to sit at a table together, it was going to be different. Dinner was at my parents' house. A Sunday in September. Mitchell cooked, which he's actually good at. Paige was there and was warmer than I'd ever seen her, which I think was genuine. I think she'd felt bad about her own part in it, and this was her way of showing it. We talked about the Kensington project. My dad asked real questions about margins and timelines, and what the partnership structure looked like. I answered all of them. At one point, Mitchell said, quietly, across the table, I should have been talking about your work the way you always talked about mine. I looked at him. Yeah, I said. You should have. He nodded. We didn't make a big thing of it. That's how Mitchell and I have always handled things. We say the true sentence and then move past it and let the doing catch up with the saying. I don't know if everything is fixed. I'm not sure that's the right word for it. What I know is that something shifted, and shifts are permanent even when they're uncomfortable. After dinner, my mom walked me to my truck. It was a cool evening, first hint of fall in the air, that particular Alberta smell of dry grass and something on the edge of changing. She hugged me goodbye and held on a second longer than usual. I'm proud of you, she said into my shoulder. I should have said that more. I held on too. There's still time, I said. I drove home with the windows down and the radio on, and the city spread out around me under a sky that had gone full dark. Full stars, the way it does out here when the August heat finally breaks. I thought about the houses I'd built. I thought about the crew I'd see Monday morning. I thought about Kensington and the 12 units going up, and the way good work just keeps standing long after the feelings that surrounded it have settled. That's the thing nobody tells you about the trades. You don't just build for the people who appreciate it. You build because the building itself is real, and real things last. And someday, someone who doesn't know your name will live inside something you made and feel at home there. That's always been enough for me.